Hi, I'm Simon K. Jones, and this is the audio version of Tales from the Triverse. Today we have Absolute Power, Part 2. Brulia, Palinor, 3208, Bright Sun. Moments after climbing onto Ngark's back and taking to the skies with a downward thrust of their huge wings, Lola realised she hadn't said goodbye. She'd taken from Darla, from Maxim, from Slava, had drained the three of them of their powers, but she'd not taken even a pause to acknowledge them. In that moment, she had been Vain-Ka, voracious, consuming energies and spell patterns in an uncontrolled metaphysical gulp. Time was not with them. Justin was up there already, fighting toe-to-toe with the rogue ship, but was losing battery power with every passing minute. The window for doing anything was vanishingly small and closing fast. But still, she wished she'd taken a second to touch Darla's face, to shake Maxim's hand, to hold on to Slava for a little longer and whisper an apology for everything that had happened. So many were dead, those she knew, those she didn't. Gina hadn't said much, but it had been evident on her face that the battle in the city had been bloody and grim. There would be a head count when it was over, and the number would be high. No more. The time for watching and observing and letting others do the hard things was over. Lola's turn. She held on, knuckles white, as Ngark lifted them high above the university and across the canyon to the main city's mesa. It was the first time she'd seen the devastation clearly, and the ruin of the university was only the sideshow. "What's the plan, Lola?" Ngark's skin was hard, rock-like in texture with a dull shine like the carapace of a beetle. Their horns served as a reticule, the two megaships framed in the distance. She could feel the subtle, passive flow of natural wielding energies within them. "Get me in close," she said. "Really close. I want to be on top of that thing." "It's got some formidable firepower, little human." Ngark made a growling noise somewhere deep in their chest, sounding much like chains dragged over stone. "You're not going to last long. Hell, I won't last long." "While I have their powers, I can look after myself," Lola replied, trying to convince herself as much as them. "Get me onto its hull, then get clear." "Oh, the wizards of Brulia couldn't take it down. What can you do?" "Just get me close." Wind buffeted her hair, and her eyes would have been streaming if they weren't already aflame. Parts of her were in a cycle of igniting and cooling, her skin shifting between fire and ice, soft and hardened. She couldn't tell if it was an illusion of sorts or physical reality. There was no pain, and it didn't seem to be bothering Ngark. Then again, Koths were tough. Lola had never absorbed the wielding potential of three people at once, especially with the combined abilities of Darla, Slava, and Maxim. It was overwhelming, and Lola's chief concern was that it could break her body before they even reached the megaship. She thought of Clark. He'd said something once, ages ago, back when they were still on the Force, back before it had all fallen apart. The words slipped away from her, and she couldn't recall them. Such were her many distractions. The two ships were ahead, circling each other, streams of light and plasma arcing between them. Explosions rippling along Probably Better's hull, jagged lines of burning orange drawn across Justin's skin. Probably Better was damaged, but would not go down, and Justin's battery would expire before they had a chance to finish the job. As a distraction, it was perfect. Ngark flew them in, the two of them tiny and inconsequential, against the two huge Max Earth vessels. Swooping in close to Probably Better's hull, it became apparent just how large it was. Bigger than any airship she'd ever seen, or ocean-going ship. Both of the megaships were native to space, and were alien to the atmosphere of the planet. They did not belong, either of them. The upper hull stretched out in all directions, undulating and with strange, inexplicable protrusions. The upper hull stretched out in all directions, undulating and with strange, inexplicable protrusions. The ship was moving, changing its direction and position above the city as it countered and dodged Justin's attacks. There were evident signs of damage across the surface, which was battle-scarred and dented, though still seemed to be in a single unbroken piece. The obsidian black material rushed by below. "It's going to nowhere here if I keep buzzing around," Ngark snarled. Then she saw it. "This will do," she said, and Ngak dropped onto the ship's upper hull. Keeping her balance as she jumped from Ngak onto the hull was a challenge, the ship tilting unpredictably in all directions. It could throw them both off if it rolled significantly. On the surface of the ship was a crater of sorts, as if something had collided with it, and within that crater was a crack. It was small, easy to miss, but undeniable nonetheless. Still too small to reach inside, her hand slightly too large to fit. She couldn't tell if the ship's outer hull was made of metal, ceramic, plastic, rock, or something else entirely, but it was tough and unyielding when she pulled at it. In the black surface, she could see the reflection of her own glowing body. "Allow me," Ngak said, gently nudging her aside. They reached in with a single claw, grimaced, and began straining against it. Bracing their legs, they kept pulling, and the material warped a little. With a roar, they belched fire and plasma into the hole, then continued to pull, using their wingtips against the hull to give them more leverage. The opening was about the diameter of her fist. Ngak took a step back, and inside the hole was a distant blue glow, pulsing to a regular rhythm. Lola hoped it was enough. "I think this might work," she said, and reached out with one hand. The ship tilted beneath them, the floor disappearing as it rotated. She felt herself tumbling through the air, wishing she had a better understanding of elementalism that might give her the ability to levitate on superheated air. "Got you," Ngak said, clutching at her waist and holding tight as they flew back up towards the ship. "I think it's on to us." They landed back on the hull, at the same spot, hanging like bats from the upturned vessel. Ngak gripping onto tiny seams in the hull with their claws. Lola nestled on their chest, wedged between the Koth and the ship. For a brief moment it felt like being in a hammock, and she almost laughed. She reached into the open hole and grabbed at the ship, finding a cluster of wires and pipes. It felt ridiculous, like trying to connect with a refrigerator or a tram. The leeching ability she'd inherited from the Vain-Ka affected people, and she could pull energies from a wielding person from the touch of skin. The megaship didn't seem to fit that definition, but given that she was hanging off the side of it, and the fate of 3 worlds hung in the balance, she might as well give it a go. Probably better was using magic to sustain itself and to cast spells. That was their best theory. If that were true, it suggested an organic component. Lola knew nothing about the physiology or construction of a megaship, but Justin had seemed to think there was a possibility of success. She adjusted her grip, leaning in, reaching deeper, and then she sensed it, a flicker of power and the electric charge of magic. It tried to hide, to move away from where she was braced against the hull, but she gave chase. The connection when it came was intensely painful, an influx of energies unlike anything she'd experienced when siphoning from a human. Even Maxim's strength was as nothing to the scale of the megaship, its power drawn directly from the sun. Her body burned, and she almost let go, could tell she was light-headed and about to pass out. She refocused her efforts. "We've got company," Ngak shouted, and she felt them being buffeted by something she couldn't see beyond the arc of their wings. The ship rolled, and the hull was below them again. Straightening to their full height, Ngak stepped away from where she lay against the hull, her arm deep within the fractured hole. They were grappling with an ill-defined mechanical shape, like the leftovers of whatever process had built the drone robots that had attacked the city. It was a glob of warped metal and plastic, with what may have been arms or legs, but not enough to form an identifiable shape. The huge Koth roared as they tore the robot apart, but another came, emerging from somewhere below the hull, then another. A blade flashed and Ngak's wing was partially severed from their back. They spun, plasma venting from their mouth and nostrils. "Get clear," she said. "I'll take it from here." "I'm sorry, Lola," the proud Koth said, dropping away from the hull and spiralling down towards the city. There had to be some purpose to taking Maxim's powers, and it seemed as good a time as any to break out his toolbox. As more of the distorted drones closed in, she allowed the energies inside her to flare up, a wall of superheated fire encircling her. The first robot that tried to cross the boundary was melted before it reached her. With her other hand, she continued gripping at the innards of the ship, tracing the circuits like the nervous system of a creature. The legacy of the Vain-Ka's hunger salivated at the opportunity to feed on such prey, and she was glad that Ngak was not there to see her ravenous expression. Darrella had helped her to suppress her inclinations, the constant desire for satisfaction, the urge to leap upon anyone who could wield and drain them dry. It had taken months, years, but she'd found her way back to society, had put up barriers and learned to conform. Lying prone against the side of the rogue megaship, her hour had come round at last. She could be unleashed without fear of harming those she loved. There was a naked violence to it, one which had shamed her in the past, shocked the girl she had once been. Lola had mourned the passing of the person she thought she'd known. None of that mattered in the moment. She found it, the ship's power core, to where all of its magical energies were directed. She began to suck it away, drawing it within herself, her veins and arteries swelling, electric patterns blooming across her skin. The ship recoiled and spun in a barrel roll, trying to shake her loose. Lola asked Darrella and Slava for aid, and their powers burst from beneath her fingertips. She felt her fingers loosening, becoming unravelled, entwining with the wires and pipes. Her body came apart cell by cell, molecule by molecule, fusing with the hull of the ship, becoming a physical part of it such that there was no possibility of being shaken loose. Lola marvelled at the sight of her free arm blending into the obsidian of the hull, infusing it with the inherited colours of her borrowed limbs. She was draining the ship of its magic, strangling the life from it, and when she was done, it would be dead. There was a shifting of inertia as Probably Better came about and began to accelerate, heading back towards the university campus and the portals. That was a risk. If it passed back to Max Earth, it could be able to restart its fusion reactor and would not need to rely on magical power. Even while she continued to drain the ship of life, Lola had no influence over its actions. The portals were visible below, the megaship aiming directly for the newly opened route to Max Earth. It could have made it. It would have made it had the second megaship, Justin, just enough, not dropped from the sky and impacted upon the rogue AI, their hulls crunching together violently, the collision sending racking pains through Lola's body, where she lay, still bonded to the hull. A scraping, screaming rending of metals as the ships bashed against one another, and then just enough was forcing Probably Better's trajectory towards the other portal. There was no getting clear entirely, of keeping the ship trapped on Palinor, and Lola gritted her teeth as the two ships crashed into the ground, digging a deep furrow as the mid-earth void loomed huge and oblique before them. The impact rattled through her bones, shook her teeth to breaking point, and still she held on. They passed through, the three of them, megaships and tiny human, and a part of her was dimly aware of being back in London at last, which she had once thought of as home. As the rogue megaship juddered to a halt and died beneath her grasp, coming to rest amidst the rubble of the underground portal station and the joint council tower, as Just Enough crashed to rest beside it. As Lola felt the stolen magic surging within her, but already starting to dissipate, as she slipped into darkness, she remembered what Clark had said that time. Every time you do anything, it might be the last time you do it. When you're young, you think you got all the time in the world. Always time for another chance. Later on, it's the other way round. Everything you do has a pretty good chance of being the last time you'll do it. Thanks for listening. You can leave comments, subscribe, find out lots more over on the newsletter at simonkjones.substack.com.